Welcome to the Your Family Dog podcast, where we celebrate the special bond between families and their canine companions. Our goal is to help families and dogs grow up together, one episode at a time. Welcome back to the Your Family Dog podcast. I'm your host, Tina Spring, and today I am joined by the amazing Lisa Richer. She is a neurodivergent success partner and advocate, transforming stuck into success for students, athletes, parents, and professionals. As the creator of the Clarity, Confidence, Courage Journey Map, she brings the what and the how to partner with your why. Together, you'll navigate internal, relational, and systemic roadblocks so you can all truly thrive. So um, Lisa rocks, y'all. Like, you're going to love her as much as I do. So welcome to the show, Lisa.
Thank you so much. We met one other time and the energy was good. And I just feel like it's like double time today. So I hope people are sitting back with some coffee and relaxing and that our energy transforms into their energy and it helps them shift into doing great things. So I'm excited to be here today.
Well, and one of the things that I loved is you and I are both kind of laser focused on how do we make it better, like a little bit better all the time, a little bit easier all the time, a little bit less mess, and a little bit more sparkly. So I have on, for those of you who are listening instead of watching, I have on my neurosparkly shirt today. It has already been quite the topic of conversation with Catherine, who's one of the production team, and with Lisa. And I'm like, y'all, teacher websites, they have good t-shirts, right? Because all the special needs teachers make all the awesome t-shirts and they work great for my classroom with kids and dogs too, and with dogs. So it all pulls together. So Lisa, can you tell a little bit about your journey? Because I think your journey has magic.
Oh, goodness. So my journey is all over the place. And it's really what brought together how you shared about me at the beginning. So I grew up as an undiagnosed athlete, undiagnosed student, undiagnosed person, neurodivergent. And so I was an elite level gymnast. I missed a lot of time in school growing up, and I did great in school until like middle school when I started traveling a lot, both for my club team and for the US. And I think that's where a lot of my neurodifferences really started to come to the surface. But I'll be 54 in September, and we didn't know what we didn't know back then. And so, um, going through life as an undiagnosed individual through corporate world, and then being gifted not one but two neurodivergent boys, now one a rising junior in high school and the other a rising sophomore in college, both with a vast and various neurodifferences. Um, that's how this journey started for me 20 years ago with my oldest, or almost 20 years ago. I'd say 19 and a half now. But it was, I didn't know the things I talk about, what I knew, what I didn't know, and what I didn't know, I didn't know. And so, those unknown unknowns are at the core of what I help people move through with that framework we talked about, with we had talked about this earlier, the moose on the table, having those difficult conversations that everyone needs to have, but no one wants to bring up. But in order to move to solution and resolution so you can thrive. And this is my life experience. I feel like this is my life's purpose. And ironically, my morning, I get these like I am quotes and some other quotes that I look at. And it was the quote from this morning was, "You're living out your life's purpose." And I haven't seen that one before. It was really interesting. So, right, we come on here, you and I talk about making the world a little bit better and a little less of this or that, so that we can all move forward together and thrive. And I know this is how my brain works. So people are hearing me going, well, what's the point and where are you going? This is the world I grew up in. And I see Tina in front of me giving me the space to have this roundabout, non sequitur conversation. That's how I know you're one of my people. But my journey went through many, many years of not being surrounded by my people, thinking that I was too much, I was too this, I was too everything. I don't use the word why. People bring me their why because why is a trigger word for me and it stops me in my tracks. If someone says, who are you? How do you do that? Tell me more. Very inclusive, very collaborative, but you hear the word why, for me, it's very intrusive and it's very like you're accusatory. And so that's part of the things in my journey. And what's interesting is as an athlete, I don't think I ever remember them saying, why did you do that? It's like, do this better or do it this way, and so even though it was directive, it was different and it worked with my way of processing and learning. But growing up in my family, it was very much, um, why do you think that way? What does that matter? And then it's same thing in business. It was, what are you even talking about? I've even heard people say to me, you're smarter than that. And what I learned over time is that it's not that I'm smarter than that, it's that you're not understanding how my brain's working. And so when I'm bringing together a project and I start in the messy middle and you want me to give you a cover, like the book covers, I don't have the book covers yet because I don't have the middle created. And you're telling me I'm smarter than that. I guess I should have been saying to you, you're better than this. And you should be listening to me, right? So now in my world today, I get to have those calm, confident conversations because of those different things. And I know you asked me a specific question. The reason I give examples is it's those examples that led me here, not a specific point in time of I'm this, then I'm that, and then I'm this, because that's that box that I was pushed to grow up in, but I didn't grow up. I didn't grow up as, but I was pushed to grow up in.
Yes. So I have a whole bunch of notes just from that, like one amazing statement. So I am a law nerd. Shout out to Emily D. Baker. Um, she is an attorney who is covering true crime, right? So she covers all the court stuff, and her family too is neurosparkly, including herself. And I love how she explains it to people. She explains it like different operating systems.
Mm.
So all of our brains have an operating system, and they're all different. And although an individual user might say an iPhone is better than a Android or a Galaxy, which is maybe better than a whatever other brand you would like to insert here, they're just different. And if you try to use the same prompts and commands and language on one operating system and you're running it on a different operating system, it won't work. It doesn't mean it's bad. It doesn't mean you're bad. It means it doesn't make the same kind of sense. So for those of you who are watching the podcast today, you're noticing I don't have my backdrop. I don't have my backdrop because when I have the backdrop on, so you get to see my messy guest room / recording studio. So if the backdrop is up, Lisa has her brain processes that in an uncomfortable way. She sees like silliness that overwhelms her. It's an easy thing for me to accommodate. Sadly, I forgot to make a note not to put my background on in the first place, which would have been even more inclusive and not made her ask. So I like the operating system analogies, and I have used that forever. My very first advertising for my dog training business was DOS, as because you're on Gen X. DOS, dog operating system. Sometimes you have corrupted files. Sometimes you get a virus. Sometimes you have the wrong floppy disk in the wrong order, right? Because I'm 1,000 years old and had to beat on a computer to make it do what I wanted it to do.
We didn't even have computers. Let's be honest. We had word processors. Like I got to college and I had a word processor with a printer that you had to peel the sides off of, right? Of the
Right,
paper. So that's art.
exactly. And like long live SuperCalc, right? Like I can remember doing budgeting in SuperCalc for a university. So I also love that you touched on that the why, like why, carries with it, I think, it implies that we're wrong or bad or not enough or not trying hard enough or not understanding or being obtuse. Like it does, you're right. It has an accusatory stance. When I always have to try to, when a when somebody on my service is like, "Well, why are we doing this?" I'm like, "Well, the real life, right? I just turn it around and go, okay, I'm gonna let that arrow go by because that was a big trigger for me too, right? And I do a lot of not yet, right? It's not a no, it's a not yet. You're like, your dog isn't there yet. And honestly, dogs have different operating systems, right? If you have a highly fearful feral dog, they're not running on the same program.
I've got a like feral dog. He's right
Yes,
here.
you have the anti-feral over there. He's
He's
like,
sitting
he
over
thinks he's a
there wanting to
people.
be part of our conversation. You're a dog. So, but yes,
Yeah,
continue.
but I mean, if we asked him, he might say he's a people in just like a dog suit. Because sometimes
He
they
might
there's
he'd
a
rather
dog
be
staying
around
here.
people.
There's a dog staying here that's a people. Like, she thinks she's a people, and so we don't tell her any different. We let her be a people. And then also I love the teaching through parables, right? If you want a story to stick, if you want a lesson to stick, using a real life example or even making up a silly example is a great way. Telling the story helps it stick, it helps it land, and I think that that is one of the great common grounds for most of the brains that I get to interact with, that I am blessed to interact with on a daily basis, right? That I get to exercise, adjusting to accommodate a lot of different brains all day long, and my own wonky, silly, works on its own corrupted files brain too, and to try to endeavor to have grace about that and to just make it better.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about grace for a minute, if we could, because when I got introduced to you and I saw the name of your podcast, I reached back out. I had sent you the message, and then I had reached back out to the person who had introduced us.
You sent me a why.
I did. Did I say why, or did I say like what is it that we would talk about?
Right. It was funny because it was such a, well, it was a very me moment where I'm like, why are you asking me? Like, your people reached out to me. Like, I
Yeah.
didn't, what's
I
happening?
think I
Well,
said like, what is it that we would talk about? And you had written back with like, well, wait a minute, you reached out to me, right? So
we're like, I'm wondering the same thing.
right. And so, but here's the great thing about it. Instead of ignoring it instead of ignoring it completely or doing the elephant in the room where you're naming it and then taming it with like, what is this about? And then you tell me what it's about because you reached out to me. Instead of stopping there and letting it get brushed under the rug,
Right.
we put the moose on the table, my little moose. It's one of my fidgets too. So we're gonna go moose on the table for a minute. We put the moose on the table, and you said to me, "Well, you tell me." And then I think I wrote back with something like, "Well, obviously there was a reason why they reached out, but." And the person who had connected us wasn't even in town. So she couldn't tell me exactly why she reached out. So I think what happened was you had said, well, what if we just got on a call and saw if it is a good? And so this is where we put the moose on the table. We leaned into that tough conversation because neither one of us really understood what had connected us because I didn't reach out directly. You didn't know I didn't reach out directly at the time. We got on together, and within like 10 minutes, we were like, whoa, we've got a lot of things that we could chat about. And so I bring that up because we could have parted ways, but here we are instead connecting, collaborating, and potentially doing series of these together, as we've talked about.
Well,
And it goes to the we didn't sit in the why or what made us, we didn't sit in the why did we get connected. We decided to get curious and
yes.
say, what was it that connected us?
Well, and I'll have to send this to you. I had never told you this. So the sweet girl, I forget her name. I would have to read it again to remember. But I'm just going to let that go and pretend and remind myself that Einstein didn't know his phone number and not view it as the potential of oncoming dementia. So her first email to me was her template. So it didn't make any sense. Like, I was like,
So it didn't even have
so
my,
like neurodivergent me was like, wait, what? What?
I didn't know
But
that.
what? And I wrote back, I'm not sure what you're trying to communicate to me because this email seems kind of incomprehensible. And God bless her. She was like, let me fix that for you. That was my error. And I was like, okay, good. Because I was afraid I had a stroke. Okay. So I love that you and I both come from a place of like, ow, grace, right? And curiosity. And I would say that that is one of my it was a hard lesson, a difficult lesson to integrate, and I still struggle sometimes, like, sometimes somebody will hit the wrong button, and I'll be like, "And then grace?" Um, Sometimes they have it coming. Sorry, Jesus. I do my best. But it I have learned that, like, the more something is frustrating, difficult, has been festering, whatever, that a lot of people are like me, that if they feel like they have to ask for help, they're already judging themselves. And so things sometimes come out sharper than, because man, don't we put an accent on everybody has to be competent in all things when there's no way that's possible. And so I've just had to learn that like that arrow is not actually intended for me. And that if I focus on the arrow, I can't love them the way they need me to love them. Whether that's telling them that I'm not a good fit, and sometimes that is how I best love them, and then point them in the direction of who I think could love them better, right? Would be better suited to help navigate the situation they're going through. But I love that the curiosity is like an integral part. It changes it from, well, they did this and they did that too. I'm curious about what prompted that. And it sounds like you're really frustrated and having a difficult time, and I want to help. And I'm so grateful that you're being brave and bringing me your yuck so that we can work through that. And of course, that's kind of more how I'm going to talk to a younger child about it. But some even adults, I'm like, thank you for bringing me your yuck, right? Or bringing me your dragon or whatever it is because it facilitates being able to start making it better.
Absolutely, and I love the arrow intended for it. I never had thought about it that way. But the other thing, as you're talking about your yuck, I'm thinking about what you had shared about me and my journey map and how it aligns with clarity, aligns with internal, confidence aligns with relational, and courage aligns with systemic. But that could be a an internal for yourself. It could be an internal conflict within a group of people. The same thing with relational. It could be yourself, your family, others that you're collaborating with, and then the courage to deal with the systemic in a way that shows up with curiosity and collaboration rather than judgment and shame. And so I love what you're saying there with that. And often what I'll do, I'm very much like you, Tina, that if someone's not meant for me, I will find someone else for them to work with. And I will, sometimes they can't afford me. And so I'll say, okay, you need to go and work with this private organization that can do it for free. Well, I've kind of already worked with them and they didn't give me what I needed. Okay, well then that's free. This is not. And so you're looking at those parallels, but having those conversations. However, at the center of it, I pause and I celebrate them for having the courage to be vulnerable enough to come to me and to recognize that they can't do it on their own and they don't need to do it on their own. And whether I'm the one helping them through that journey or someone else, I'm not going to be mad. Like years ago, 10 years ago, when I first started my business, and I had had other types of businesses before, but they were always driven out of somebody needed my help, but wanted me as a consultant instead of an employee, which was fine with me too, because my hours were more flexible. So I'd start an LLC. This one I built based on my life's purpose, my vision, my lived experiences, and my kids. But the first couple of years, I felt like I had to be everything to everybody. And it wasn't until I went into burnout, like hardcore on ashes. I had a couch back here for a couple years. I couldn't even be in this office area because it just reminded me and triggered me so much of that time. But it was the best and worst thing that ever happened to me because it was the first time in my life I actually genuinely asked someone for help and realized that not only Could I not do it alone without that happening again? I didn't need to do it alone. And what I came to really learn at the end of the day was everyone thought I had, hopefully it's okay if I curse, you can cut it out. Everyone thought I had my shit together so well that I didn't need any help. And I was the one saying I felt like I needed to be the strong one. And people were like, "We wanted to help you. You just didn't think it seemed like you needed it." I was just fraying until I imploded.
Okay, so I'm gonna tell a story. So I adopted a teenager from social services. My now ex-husband and I, when we were married, we adopted this amazing young woman, and I love her, and she's amazing. She taught me an awful lot. Um, at one point, our daughter was very much in crisis, and it was very scary. Like, and while I am prone to hyperbole, it is not hyperbolic for me to say that we were in a fight for our lives and for her life, right? The chances of a murder or suicide were extraordinarily high. And so those were conversations that we had to have with our families while we were working with the doctors and the therapists and all the things. And there was a time where I was so overwrought that the only way I could explain it, and I've never come up with a better way to explain it, is that I was a sponge that was so dry that if you put me in a bucket of clean, beautiful water, I didn't have the energy to absorb it. Like, I was wrecked. And I called my mom, and she had nothing for me. Not not even, "It's all gonna be okay," or an "I love you." She said at one point, like, in agony, I said to her, Doesn't this even bother you? Like, do you even care?" And she said, and I truly in my soul can tell you that she meant this as a compliment. She said, "I don't worry about you. You're competent. You've always been competent." And it's probably one of the biggest wounds I've ever had because competent will kill you. Competent will end your life sometimes because it's a heavy burden, right? And I'm a firstborn and I'm a Capricorn, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff that reads into it. And you can hear the emotion now. I am who I am, and I'm going to show you the emotion when it happens. She didn't mean it in a bad way. She meant it as a compliment.
Yeah.
But in that moment, I realized, like, okay, when I'm gutted, I can't call you. I can't call you. I need a different village to love me when I need someone to love me. And so I made a different call. And that probably had pretty big consequences for our relationship. My mom passed away in February. It's a conversation she and I will have to have in heaven
Mm.
because I didn't realize until this moment. I didn't think of it clearly until our conversation. So thank you for that today.
I was just gonna, well, thank you for sharing that with me. I can see the emotion. I was actually gonna ask you, have you had that conversation? It sounds like that's something you weren't able to even acknowledge.
No,
Yeah.
but I mean, I don't know. Energy is the first line of communication, right?
Yeah.
So I think they know,
Yeah.
and I think they love us, and I think they don't the people, the dogs, the horses, the kitties, the everything that's gone to wherever the next place is.
Yeah.
I think there's a connection and things get resolved. And we realized, like, 2 things can be true at the same time. She could mean it as a compliment and also absolutely gut me by saying, like, "You don't need my help. Like, I don't have to jump in and help you, and I don't have to give you anything. You have all the tools." Like, she meant it as a compliment, and I was not in a place that was a hat that fit very well because competent is tiring. So part of the reason I wanted Lisa to come on, and to come on more than once, is I cannot imagine a more excruciating job than parenting. I also cannot imagine a more magical, amazing job than parenting.
Mm-mm.
And so we want to make it better for everybody. So if you're sitting there going, yeah, Tina, that confident thing sucks, pull up a chair and look forward to when Lisa's going to be back on and continue listening to this podcast because it's a good one. So, where's a good place to start with how you bless families?
Yeah, and
And then,
I wanna go there, but I want to acknowledge a little bit more about what you just said because, um, it's interesting. When I went into burnout, I did not reach out to my parents at all. I didn't know how my husband would respond, and my best friend is the one that I connected to because she's been my best friend for 40 plus years, actually now going on 49. So we met when we were very little. And we've been through hell and back again in different phases of our lives, sometimes not even recognizing that we had those. Um, but it was months and I hadn't reached out to my parents. And we always talked, even on the surface level. There were times where I didn't speak with them. That's for a whole nother conversation. But what was interesting is when I started showing up on these podcasts, probably a year after COVID, I was tapping in with people and they were like, "Hey, would you like to talk with me?" I'm like, "Sure, let's have a conversation." And I started sharing those with my family. And my parents, for the first time, started to listen to the things I was trying to tell them for years and years and years. The way we communicated was either through fighting or writing letters, and those letters never got to resolution, which is partly why I think I love the Moose on the Table so much. Um, but I also know that the day I went to the doctor that I couldn't even drive because my burnout was so bad, my husband's like, "What are you crying for?" And my response was, "Because I need to be the strong one." And he said, "Whoever told you how to be the strong one?" And of all people, I never thought he was going to be the one to break open my floodgates to the point of going all the way back into childhood and starting to heal myself. But he did. And not, probably still to this day, unknowingly, that was such a transformative thing. Um, but when I finally did talk to my parents, they were like, "Oh my gosh, so you've been up like all these nights not being able to sleep?" And this was after years of us not talking off and on, not talking to my brother. I haven't barely talked to him in years for other reasons. But they just started to see me as me instead of as someone that they thought I was. And that's where
yeah,
I hope for you in the next life or whatever that you get that opportunity to. I never, ever thought I'd have the relationship that I have today with my mom. And listening to what you just described makes me that much more grateful that we were able to break down those barriers. And sadly, it took burnout for me to, kind of to move into that and to get there,
right.
but also years and years of showing up on podcasts where they got to listen to my vulnerability and my true experiences growing up, not their perception of my
Yes.
experiences.
And I'm totally clear that for a lot of other people, hearing you're confident, you've got this, would have landed great. It would have been just what they needed.
Yeah.
But it was one of the moments where I realized, like, wow, my mom doesn't even really know me.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a caricature to them. And, sadly, that continues in my family, and that's okay. Like, that's okay. It's not my job, like, not my circus. I remain open and vulnerable and authentic. And maybe one day they'll be curious or they won't. And that's okay. I'm
Yeah.
okay. I have built an unbelievable family who gets me.
Yeah. Well, and that's it. So you asked, good segue, how I help families, how I help individuals, how I help organizations, professionals, anybody that is choosing to come to me because, yes, I do have experiences in all those facets. Yes, there are different domains. And yes, I can help people across all of them. And so I did pick my area and it is neurodiversity. And I did pick my focal point, which is that journey map. And I am 100% proponent that neurodiversity is the prism lighting the table. And so I bring my what, my how, and whatever else they need from me, and they bring me their why. And we meet in that messy middle, in that place where people have said to me, I thought you were smarter than that. And they probably meant it the same way you're saying you think your mom meant it. I didn't take it that way. And I now get more curious and talk about, well, what does that mean? Where are we going with this? How is that helpful? And so recognizing what it is that we need to do, how we need to do it, and where we're going with these things is what's so important. And so if we're talking about families that have students, um, they might just be getting diagnosed, and whether that's at 2 years old or 15 years old, they bring me that why. Like, what is it? Why are you coming to me, and what are we trying to solve for? And I help them navigate the complexities of the neurodiverse learning journey. And so bringing simplicity to a very complicated, complex world is what I do. And I am a very firm believer, and I talked about this on an episode recently with a person who does a lot of holistic healing and nervous system work, and that I'm a very firm believer that a diagnosis informs, it does not define. It is not
Yeah.
the end of the conversation. It is just the beginning.
Well, and so back to Emily D. Baker, she talks about like getting the diagnosis was like, well, thank goodness.
Yes,
This explains a bunch of stuff, right? Like for her, one of her issues she talks about all the time is that time is a construct. It doesn't make sense to her. And so, like, she just gets lost in time. And I see that with lots of people.
executive functioning.
Right. Like they don't have like a true north of noon, right? And so imagine how that feels to the world. Like sometimes she shows up probably late for the flight, sometimes she's wicked early. Like it's not intentional, but I know like people have like a whole thing about like, oh, you were, if you show what's the saying? If you show up 10 minutes early, you're anxious. If you show up 10 minutes late, you're a narcissist. And if you show up on time, you're OCD.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that. But what I would
It's
say,
like you can't win no matter how you slice it.
it's funny because I always tell people I'm either early or late. I'm never on time. So just be ready for me. But that's not something I was comfortable saying or doing for many, many years. But the more I learn about myself, the more I learn about how I do things. I want my clients, whether they are 30 years into a career or a brand new parent trying to navigate the system, I want people to know that I am who I am. I'm real. I'm raw. And yesterday I was telling you, right, I was at I was at a store, and the person, I didn't tell you this part, person gave me their business card. And I said to her, let me just take a picture of it because I'm going to lose it. And she looked at me and laughed. She's like, I love your energy and I love how honest you are. She's like,
Yeah.
you've been in here with me for 20 minutes. I was asking you questions. I was looking at jewelry. I was looking at a ring, like an anniversary band that I've been looking for one for like 10 years now. And I was like, I want something specific. And so I was very honest and open with her, but I was doing it from a place of curiosity and compassion. She was meeting me where I was. And so at the end of the conversation, she just said, I love how honest you are. I love your energy. I look forward to working with you because you're just so real. And that's who I am and what I do. And Tina, that's part of what I got from you when we did end up finally going like, what are we doing here? And what are we going to do about it? And
Like,
it
hi,
was,
how are you?
yeah, like, okay, now what? What's next? Um, we found so many commonalities in you. The name of your podcast doesn't talk to even an eighth of who you are, what you do, and how you do it, and how you help people. And so
Oh,
the reason I say that is because you can't judge a book by its cover, right? Like when I looked at it, and even with mine, right? I knew the work that I do and how I do it made sense to me. But what I learned in the last year and a half of really honing in how I talk about my messaging and even what you shared out loud, I've been talking about those things for years and years, but I just updated that on my website literally a month ago because it finally became so clear to people across all those domains that I work in. And it made sense to all of them. I've been
Yeah.
on many different types of podcasts, from performance coaching to yours to holistic, high level corporates, and then uh, lawyer advocates that had me on specifically for, IEP meetings. And so it's landed on everybody. But it's taken me 10 years of thinking I knew what I was saying made sense to make sense to other people. And it's something that I've been doing for 25 plus years. I just didn't have a name to it. But then it took me another 10 years for it to make sense to other people.
I think that happens though.
All
Like,
the time.
so
That was
if
my aha. It was like, wow.
I have long said, I wish I could change my regular training business from Sit Happens Dog Training and Behavior to Sit Happens Dog Teaching and Behavior.
Mm,
But no one would know what that was.
yeah.
So I don't. So for the average family, because we're going to assume we're talking to the average family here. So actually, let me back up. I have a question before that.
Yeah.
Is it we're all inside the standard deviation? Like we all have a little neuro something here or there. Sometimes it's big, sometimes it's little. Sometimes we have amazing adaptive coping skills and we just move through the world. And sometimes it's bigger than that. And we need accommodations. We need little tweaks here and there to make life easier. Are we all basically neurodivergent, or is that like some terrible offensive thing to say and I'm going to get mean emails?
I mean, you might get mean emails. I hope not, because here they might not like my answer there. Here's my answer. There is a neurodiversity umbrella. And that includes neurotypical, which is what's deemed by society as typical and normal. And then there's neurodivergent. And oftentimes I'll look at neurodivergent as that whole spectrum, from anything from a twice exceptional student to someone who has Down syndrome, someone who has traumatic brain injury, or anxiety, depression, uh, and then autistic, ADHD. Now, the interesting thing is, I was on an episode about 6 months ago where the person was a therapist, and I've been on numerous, and I collaborate with therapists all the time because I like to bring teams of people together to help
Right.
support the whole child or the whole person, because it takes a village. And what they said was that they literally break apart something like anxiety and depression from autistic. And their reasoning was because those things often happen based on triggers of other things. But in my mind, they could still be intertwining. And so I'm going around right in a circle here, and people are like, you're not really necessarily answering Tina's question. You're right. Because there is no one right answer. Just like
Right.
you said at the very beginning of the conversation here today, there is no one right answer. So if you want to send her a hate mail or send me a hate mail, it's going to bounce off, like that force field.
Oh, no. So it'll land. It'll
It'll bounce
land and
off
I'll
me
cry.
now.
Yeah, no,
It'll
it'll bounce off you.
okay.
I want a little bit of that magic, but I also think that it's important for me to take a moment and sit with the criticism and then go, is that something that's informative to me? Like, do I have something to learn from that? Or does the person just need a break?
Well, and here's the thing though. The reason it bounces off of me now is because how they're feeling isn't right or wrong. But it's not about me. It's about them. So you talk about that arrow, right? The arrow wasn't meant to hit me. It was meant to just bring up what you were saying. Let's sit in it for a minute. So it
Right.
bounces off of me in the state that I'm not taking in the energy anymore. I did for many years, but I'm not taking it in because my reality is not necessarily your reality. And at the same time, what we're talking about here is I couldn't even find a full list of what was considered a neurotype when I did when I did a keynote several years ago. And that was 3 or 4 years ago that I was doing some of that research for a specific keynote I did. If I couldn't find a list then, and now there's even more of these neurodifferences, here's where I stand, and I stand very strong here. Does it matter? Or does what really matter is that we look to meet people where they are, support one another appropriately, so that we can all thrive, whatever that looks like for each of us?
Right. I mean, I don't know about you. I don't judge someone walking with a cast on their foot. I just get them an extra chair to put their foot up.
Mhm.
I don't judge that, right? It just is.
The other thing is, like, you think about, so I know people that have, I think it's called EDS, when like but like your things might pop out of the sockets, and elders. Yeah, I can't pronounce it. And I have a very dear friend that has that. I didn't know much about it. I had to ask her. She would have to have a lot of time off from work, but you would look at her and you would think she was in perfect health. And so it's that type of thing. My oldest, when he was first diagnosed autistic, people that didn't know him 5 years earlier, when so many things were happening, hand flapping, toe walking, things, because he was trying to regulate. People that knew him 5, 7 years later, they're like, "Well, he doesn't look autistic." And I'll never forget him coming home from school one day and saying to me, "Mom, some of my friends said that to me, friends, and they actually, I mean, they were kids, right? So they were really just being like, 'Well, you don't look autistic.'" And he said, "Well, what does autistic look like?" And I said, "Yes." Like, that's when I knew that I had truly been setting him up to be successful in whatever that looked like for him, because he wasn't afraid to say it. And what happened was he educated them. Do you remember on the playground when I would follow you, or you would talk about this one topic and I didn't know what to say, and you guys would look at me like, "What's wrong with you?" I didn't know how to socialize. I didn't know how to communicate. Some of those kids are some of his best friends, and that was middle school. He's in college. And then in high school, he was able to, with a different group of people, be at a retreat and talk about it. Sometimes he would call it his greatest secret. And people were like, "Wow, that just makes us respect you that much more. We didn't know how much harder you were working to be at the top of your class than the rest of us." So
Right.
we never know what someone's going through. Whether they're formally diagnosed or not, the question to ask yourself is, does it matter?
Okay. So let's bring it down to moms and dads and kids and dogs.
Yeah.
So, how might what you do look in a family situation where there's a neurodivergent child? Maybe a processing disorder, where, although I don't like it as a disorder, but having big feelings and difficulty processing. Um, how might a dog trainer, a lowly dog trainer, and a really brilliant woman with a moose help that family make everything easier for every one of the living things in the household?
Yeah. Great
Am I
question.
working on, like, making sure dog toenails are cut every 6 days and nice and short, or putting caps on them so that there's not noise? Is it I'm teaching the dog that maybe there's a signal the child gives when they're starting to struggle, that's a cue for the dog to go lie on a mat or go to another room or go get their Kong or whatever? Talk to me about how kids and dogs and families and what you do kind of come together.
Yeah. Wow. That just gave me chills, because I think about when we got Stoli, who's the dog that I had showed a little while ago. Now,
Mhm.
I don't know where he went.
Is he a poodle or a
He's
doodle?
a he's a mini golden doodle. I call him a designer mutt. So we paid a lot for a designer mutt. I wanted a specific temperament, because
Mhm.
my younger son, who he is, initially was ADHD, anxiety, absence seizures, visual processing disorder. We got him reassessed in the fall of last year. He has so many other learning differences. I'm not going to get into them, but let's go back to the basics here. I wanted a dog because I thought that it would help him have a companion. They could get excited together, calm down together, do the zoomies together, right? Like whatever that would look like. And I ended up being the one that had to lay with the dog, that trained the dog. My husband didn't want another dog, so I'm like, okay, I trained him, and so he became like mine. Like he always wants to be with me. Now he will be with my kids, and he will stay in the room with him. But the intention of it was, and I didn't have a you, right, Tina? So I didn't have someone because we weren't making him his emotional support dog specifically. In that case, I wanted a
You
companion.
wanted a family member.
A family member, exactly, which the dog thinks he is a family member. So, and
Well, he is.
he's distracting me because he's staring out the window and there's nothing out there. So to answer your question, how it all comes together. In this case, because I don't typically get involved in the home life of the family
Oh,
directly.
okay.
So let me say directly, because what happens is people bring me what they think is their why, which is let's get this fixed in the school. And what it comes back to is what's going on at home, what's going on with yourself, what's going on with you as mom or
Right.
you as dad, then your child. Who are the team members that you have in place? How are those team members coming together? So I become that conduit. And so if you think about it, I'm like that center nucleus of all the people I wrap my arms around and bring that team together and help us guide forward. So how I come in with mom and dad, sometimes it is being that ear. I've had clients that have said to me, oh my gosh, you're more like my therapist than my therapist is, even though I don't have that background, because I have so many lived experiences, but it's, again, they're bringing me their why. And those triggers are impacting how they're showing up in a meeting, how they're showing up at home, how their energy is impacting their child. So I do have a lot of different varying certifications that help me navigate these spaces with them. But I'm not a certified therapist. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not an OT or speech and language. I do have executive functioning, parent behavioral, special education, advocacy, all those certifications. So I can and lots of lived experience. So the way it comes together, if you're still with me here, is I've lived in those big feelings. I've lived with my kids in those big feelings. I've had training. So oftentimes where it comes together for me is to say, okay, what's triggering this? How are we getting there? Asking those curious questions, bringing in my former training background when I worked in corporate and in leadership, and just being like, okay, how does all this come together? And then, okay, do you have the right tools and supports and resources in place to have a team that is going to help you process those big feelings yourself, because you might blame yourself or think like, just kid, get over it. Guess what? Those don't work, either of those. So let's remove the
Right. I
judgment.
mean, I'm Gen X, so get over it was like it's funny. I was talking to a younger a customer who's younger, significantly younger than I am. And he was like, "Can you explain the whole Gen X thing?" And I was like, "Oh yeah. 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 Yeah."
Yeah.
There wasn't support. You just went, "Oh, okay, so that's what we're doing now." And then you just figured it out.
Yeah. And it's
'Cause
interesting because,
there wasn't gonna Superman was not gonna show up and go, "Hey, let me explain this to you and help you get it right." So we're like, so sometimes we're triggered by the, "Can you change this and can you change that?" And we're like, "Get over it. I had to get over it, you have to get over it." And it's interesting because, like, wearing neurosparkly, it's not me saying the whole world has to accommodate little old me.
yeah.
Me saying, "I'm gonna live in my brain and in my neuro whatever it is that's going on in here, and it's okay, and I'm gonna find ways to celebrate it. And I'm gonna just remove myself from stuff that doesn't work for me."
Well,
Like
what's interesting, Tina, is so Gen Z, I think it's Gen Z. Yeah. They started coming in and taking over a lot of the business roles, right? Because that was the era.
Mhm.
And the Gen Xers And even some of the baby boomers would be like, well, what's going on with this person? They're entitled, they're this. And I said, oh my gosh, I wish I had their courage. And so I learned a lot from them. And when I was
Right.
in HR leadership and I had teams of 60 some leaders, some of which were like, I love this person because they're challenging me, and others that are like, get over it, do as I say, not as I do. And we grew up,
Right.
you and I, in that do as I say, not as I do. But I thrive in that way that they were speaking up for themselves, challenging status quo and doing all of that. They were the beginning of me helping myself learn to start to try to change my little piece of the world and one person at a time. And so coming together back as you as a dog, the training, educating, it goes with like my framework. I also have another framework that's called Ripe Ideas. How are we reflecting, implementing, practice, and evaluating what we need in order to have it sustainable, long-term, accessible? And so I, again, back to that caveat, would partner with someone like you, Tina, with them in the home of, okay, what is it that you're trying to do with them to educate, train and teach the dog, but also educate the family to come together, meet each other where you are, and then move forward together. And so while I don't go into the home, I work with the entire village of people, whether they are a familia, like a family cohort, or family and an OT and a speech pathologist and a behavioralist and executive functioning coach, a dog training, special educators in the school system, out of the school system. I help you work with creating those teams, making sure you have the right teams, and then showing up for you behind the scenes and oftentimes in meetings as well to help, if you will, train the trainer, help you figure out how to do the work. So eventually you can say, Lisa, I don't need you anymore, because
Right.
that's when I know I've done my job well.
Right. And I would say that, like, when I work with families that approach me specifically that, hey, we have special needs going on, um, it's very interesting because I love it when they're like, I have to say to them, like, at the end of an appointment, do we even, like, do you think we need, like, I'm not breaking up with you. I love you, but do you want to meet for coffee and a chat and not pay me because you don't need me anymore?
Yeah. And
And they're
that's one of
like,
my favorites, Tina,
and
when I get to
right?
just be
But
friends with them.
sometimes I have to be careful because sometimes it hurts their feelings. And I'm like, no, no, no. I'm not mad. Like, this is a
This is
good thing.
great.
Right. So I will tell you, um, so part of this whole, like, everybody's got their stuff is I watch it happen, right?
Mhm.
Um, family is retirement age, kids are off to college, and they get a dog, and suddenly dad is really struggling and having big feelings because the dog barks too much. The very first thing I ask is your husband starting to lose his hearing?
Mm,
And usually wife says, yes, he is.
interesting.
And I'm like, right. So his world's getting quieter. And when something breaks through that quiet, it's scary. It's
Yeah.
firing off that amygdala, right? Like his brain's going, ah, what just happened? It was
Right.
nice and quiet, right? I will always remember the day I noticed that my mom didn't have music on in the house and the car anymore.
Mm,
And I am now at that age where
interesting.
there's usually not background noise because, like, I crave the silence. And maybe it's a maturational developmental thing, but it might also be why I don't have 6 children running around in my house because that's a lot of noise.
Yeah.
Like, that's a young woman's game. I could enjoy them for periods of time, and then I get a nap, and they go home, right? So, part of it's longitudinal. It's not like, even if everybody, when we got the dog, had perfect hearing, and now we're starting to have changes,
Yeah.
it the dog's tippy tappies still needed to be cut.
Mm,
Right? There are lots of things we can do
yeah.
to make it easier, but we can also recognize, like, a dog is going to bark unless you have breeds that don't really bark, which is what we have,
Mm,
right? Like, we've added sight hounds because they're pretty resistant to barking.
Okay.
So they're an easier fit. They're
Mhm.
really quiet. So they've been amazing in
Yeah,
our household
yeah.
because Chris and I, after long days, like crave the quiet a little bit.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, it's interesting. So what you're talking about, because I wouldn't think those were some of the things that you would necessarily be talking with someone about. So I'm guessing people might think that as well. However, as I'm listening to you, and I hate the term special needs. Like I don't like the word Special Olympics, special needs. I don't like handicapped. I like, you know, just different words, and not that. And to me, I don't look at it as ableist because it was there long before we were alive. So I get that we call it ableist, but to me, it's like, let's just change the narrative. And that's where I go to. Like, if we're going to sit there in the problem, but not choose to create a change, which again, elephant in the room versus moose on the table, everyone has special. Here's where I would say what you were asking earlier about does everybody have something? Everybody has specialized needs once in a while.
Some of
So
us just have it more often.
yes. And some of us have it needing it consistently because of specific diagnoses, because of specific differences. We've been on this chat about an hour, and I wouldn't have been able to engage and have this with you had you had that background on, because I would have had a migraine by now. Because the backgrounds give me headaches and they make me not just feel uncomfortable, they literally physically give me a headache. And so helping people recognize that it's okay to ask for what you need, that it's okay to not let the just do as I say go. What's not okay is to be combative in your response to it. So when you show up with curiosity, when you lean in, when you're educating and helping others understand the reason behind it, and then if they choose still not to, then you get to choose whether or not you want them in your life anymore. But sometimes they need to be there anyway because they're part of a meeting. Like I have one person who is in special education department at one of our central offices in our school system. And every meeting I ask her to turn her background off. And guess what? Every meeting she comes in with that background on. And I've been working with her for over 5 years. So don't feel bad, Tina, that you forgot one time. She
Well,
never turns it off, even when I
and
ask her to.
and and my background automatically
Yeah.
populates. So it's just one of those things that like I would have to change the
Yeah.
software. So it,
And I'm
it,
not asking you to change it. I'm just asking you to
right,
accommodate me with
right,
that
yes. And I
specific
love that you're
need.
gentle about it. You're like, hey, background, right?
Like, would you mind removing it, please?
Sorry, it's very windy over there. So, okay. I still feel like we're running around a little. So I think we're gonna have you on as a more regular guest if that works for your schedule, so that families we can talk around some of the strategies or maybe even just the system because
Mhm,
you have a system teaching us a system of how any family might navigate this, whether it's grandma or grandpa is moving in with the household or somebody in the household already has a diagnosis or things are just changing for someone in the household because it's always changing in the household.
mhm. Absolutely. I
Like
love
we're
that
all always
because
changing.
absolutely. And people often ask me to be part of that cohort to work through their things. And I just tell people, I'm happy to do that. I can use my system in the classroom, the boardroom, the arena, the living room. It doesn't matter where it is. We just need to get together and align on how that comes together. So I think that would be a great conversation to have maybe next time,
Yes.
and then we can think about a series of how those things intertwine and come together. That would be great.
So so has it ever occurred to you in the past to include a dog trainer if the family has a dog?
Not until today.
Yeah.
Now it
So
has.
I sometimes see like IEPs because sometimes I'm presented with IEPs because it's a that can be a really useful tool for me, right? It helps me understand what somebody may need, what accommodations a family might need,
Yeah.
and how to build that in for the dog.
Yeah.
So, um, yeah, but I don't generally get invited by people who are trying to help the family, and I often think to myself, like, we could have made this much easier with some coaching for the dog or the cat or the family on, like, "Hey, we can make this easier for the family." So I'll tell a quick story and then we're gonna sign off. So I worked with an amazing family who has adopted children, and one of the children, um, has big feelings about things and struggles to process, and a dog showed up, the dog that was meant for them, but the dog is very, very, very fearful and sensitive. Dog loves the child, but really struggles when the child is struggling, right? The same
Mhm.
way that mom and dad and siblings struggle while this child is struggling. So I put on my behavior hat and said, okay, what happens just before the, we'll call it a meltdown. It's not really a meltdown, right?
What's the
Before,
antecedent? Sure.
what's the antecedent? And so mom is a special ed teacher. Yay. Right. So we write that down. I'm like, what happens just before that? She's like, oh, I have to think about that. And we came up with a couple of things. And then I'm like, what happens before those things?
Mhm.
And what I'm going to do as the dog trainer is work back to, like, ideally 4 spots, 4 layers before the feelings happen in an unhealthy way. And what we did was we taught the dog, let's say it's a foot stomp, right? She stomps her foot. We taught this dog that when a foot stomp happens, and we had to start with a really quiet foot stomp, but foot stomp happens, that means go to mom and dad's bedroom. And we just taught the dog that's what you do.
Mhm.
We also taught the other children in the household that when the foot stomp happens and the dog leaves the room, that means they're allowed to play a video game that they don't normally have access to. And they put a small refrigerator freezer in their bedroom so that when the foot stomp happened, there were stuffed frozen Kongs in the freezer in the bedroom. So
Mhm.
basically, when the foot stomp happened, everybody who didn't need to be a part of the audience, right, a part of the thing that might complicate it more, left and got a reward for leaving. And it allowed mom and dad to really jump in and help their child who was struggling.
Mhm.
After the first time, they we had to change the cue because if she foot stomped and the dog and the boys left, that was a big environmental shift that helped her use her tools because it was early enough in the process
Mhm.
that she still had the bandwidth
Yeah.
to use her tools. So I see families who are like, well, the punch in the face happens and then this is what we're going to do. And I'm like, no, no, no. There is magic in deep antecedents, not the
Yes.
immediate antecedent.
Right.
By then, your hair's on fire,
Yeah.
right? So backing it way up and then even saying, like, this little girl loves her dog. The dog leaving the room is like, whoa, where'd my dog go?
Right,
Right?
it's
And
a
the dog
trigger for
loves
her,
the
like,
child.
you just I you my you are my safety and my calm, and you just disappeared, and so, I love that. I'm wondering if we table that as the topic starter and start our next conversation with this story. And because between the systems and strategies and my parent behavioral training back when my oldest was 4, Zoom likes that, with
Dude
the
like that.
ABCs of ABA and how understanding those steps back and the training that I had to get in order to be able to support and the training that was required of me in the state I was living in at the time doesn't always happen. And that's another area where system strategies and what you're describing I think we just came up with our topic for our next session.
Excellent. So, whether you have a family that is neurodivergent or not, if you're like, hey, we are Joe average, like everybody in our household seems pretty neurotypical, including the dog. This still blesses you
Mhm.
because it's all the times that you get frustrated. Like all the things the dog does that annoys your husband, we can come up with ways to adjust that so that there's ease in the system because we all can show up better in our lives for our spouses, our coworkers, our families, our kids and dogs when we have a little bit of ease in the system. And that, we cover lots of topics on the podcast. We talk about cancer and we talk about bereavement. And I really think that Lisa brings a magic to the table that we haven't had before. So if this conversation, as wide ranging as it's been, is meaningful to you, if you have questions, please email us at yourfamilydogpodcast@gmail.com. I will also include all of Lisa's information. So if you want a direct line to Awesome, you can get it. And please like and share the podcast. Please share this with a family you love, or maybe a family that you find really difficult, because we got some magic for you. And maybe my mom's listening too.
I hope so. I really do.
Yeah, because honestly, if I can prevent one kid growing up the way I felt growing up, that is good enough for me. So that's part of the mission of this podcast. If there are other people you think we need to have on, please reach out. Give me your ideas. Tell me who you want on the podcast because we want to love the world. So please like and share. Please rate and review. Put your DNA on the like and subscribe button. It helps us share the podcast because we don't want to hide under a basket. There is merch. If you want to support the podcast, please go to the website, yourfamilydog.com, and go to the shop and buy a t-shirt, and maybe we'll make a neurosparkly one. I'm thinking we might. So thank you for sharing your precious time with us today, and we'll talk to you next time on the Your Family Dog podcast. That's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for spending part of your precious day with us. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to follow, rate, subscribe so that you never miss an episode. We'd love to hear from you. Connect with us on social media or email us at yourfamilydogpodcast@gmail.com. We'll see you soon.